Hey, welcome to the Scan AI booth here at GTC 24. I'm thrilled because today I get to talk about my personal favorite topic, OpenUSD, with the man himself, Aaron Luk, who is the product manager for OpenUSD and Omniverse at NVIDIA. Welcome.
Thank you.
How's it going for you? How's GTC for you?
Oh, it's great. So, yeah, it's really good to be in person. I joined NVIDIA in 2019, right before the most recent in-person GTC. I was out in Germany at the time, so I didn't make it here that time. So it's really good to be back in person 5 years later, and actually 5 years after we launched Omniverse at that GTC.
Right. And we've been on calls over the years, virtually, and so it's great to see you in person and talk about, as I say, my favorite topic, OpenUSD. I use it in the work that I do in media and entertainment. I'm a showrunner and I develop live action and animated properties. And what OpenUSD has done for me is that it's lowered the technical barrier for a complex pipeline, specifically how I use different applications. Omniverse is really good at connecting different applications. Can you tell us a little bit about the product vision, how that sort of came about and why NVIDIA identified USD as a necessity for opening up this whole ecosystem?
I think there were a lot of that decision making happened before I started, but there's always a lot of projects going on at NVIDIA, and there's lots of different teams. And in particular, one of the interesting things that NVIDIA wanted to do was make it really easy for their researchers to have a way to showcase their work, right? Take research results and get really beautiful renders of anything that they're working on, all right? And USD is this nice way of being able to unify how to describe that data and send it to a renderer in a standardized way.
Yeah, and historically, file formats, I know USD is more than a file format, but if we just look at how 3D file formats have evolved over the decades, interoperability has been the lowest priority, right? It's been more about some of the data that comes in different formats. There have been some common formats in terms of exports, but most apps have their own proprietary sort of file format. USD kind of changes that in that it's a common format that is very versatile and obviously open source. What are some of the advantages that you're seeing with the partners you work with and some of the productions that you've been involved in, obviously in media entertainment and beyond, that are really down to that implementation and adoption of USD?
Yeah, I think the sort of the key decision that USD makes is to abstract all the notions of traditional file formats, right? So there's a human readable version and there's a binary version, but those are compliant with sort of the USD specifications that we're formalizing in the Alliance for OpenUSD, right? So there's a clear document model for how to make up a layer in USD, and it can be adhered to by any serialization, right? So other file formats can essentially natively speak USD accordingly. So that allows for really great integrations like Solaris and Houdini, right? Or I think that's a lot of those concepts map really well. That's actually, I think you talked about a little bit about the product vision for Omniverse, and actually that's a big part of my roadmap going forward is really not only just formalizing USD data specifications, but formalizing how other data maps to USD, right? So for example, I talked about Houdini and Maya, 3ds Max. All these things already have USD support for it. But what I'd really like to do is formalize in documents. Oh, this concept in 3ds Max maps to this concept in USD, and so on and so forth. So it's more. You have more than just a software. You have this like field guide for developers to know. Okay, this is how these concepts map, and it goes to what you were speaking about earlier too, which is actually a pleasant surprise for me that it really eased the pipeline development for you, but I'd love to make it even easier by really outlining all those concepts and make it clear that this is a data mapping, not a data conversion.
Right, that's a very important distinction. I don't come from a technical background. I have an understanding of the technical stuff, but I've never been a TD, and I don't code, but I'm a showrunner, and I come up with creative ideas, and I'm a designer and an artist. In the history of trying to get my head around 3D production pipelines, it's only with USD that I've been able to go from a hand-drawn sort of sketch into final pixel 3D animation on my own, and that's really down to the connectivity that USD and the way it's implemented in Omniverse. It's really down to that stuff. I attended your talk that kicked off day 2 of GTC, which was all about OpenUSD. In fact, it was called OpenUSD Day, full of fantastic sessions. Your talk was brilliant because it really set the tone and whet people's appetite for what's coming next.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you helpfully jargon busted a bunch of stuff for me, like OpenPBR, and then you had an Open Executable exec or something?
Open Exec, yeah, it's an initiative from Pixar. So USD is derived from the Presto animation system at Pixar.
That's their in-house animation system.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And then so when I started at Pixar in 2007, that was what I was working on originally. And so a lot of the USD concepts were birthed, well, actually they were birthed way before that, like probably back to A Bug's Life or so.
And they were birthed because they came out of a necessity that they identified from trying to make feature films, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And a large team.
Yeah, large team with different disciplines, right? All operating on the scene together, right? And so they realized early on, like pretty much right after Toy Story 1, that they needed more sort of free-form departmental workflows and kind of things like that. So they're already thinking about how to structure the assets accordingly from there. So the idea of referencing dates back to then, and then kind of evolved into sort of a whole rethink in Presto about how to compose data together, right? So the composition engine, which is like the main feature that I outlined out of the 4, right, about USD, that originated in Presto, and the notion of actually all. 3 out of the 4 originated in Presto. So the composition engine and the data models, although Presto schema system is a little bit different from USD, but the idea is the same. Asset resolvers and data file format abstractions, that originated in Presto as well. Hydra came later, but the notion of abstracting the scene graph from the renderer was there too. But Presto, on top of where USD sits in Presto, there's also an execution system, right?
So what system?
Execution system, right? And that's where you can actually define your deformers, right, and all the animation behaviors and things like that, right? So you can set up your character rigs in Presto, and the animators animate in there. I think they're working on getting the lighters working in there as well too. But a lot of the shot work and the animation work happens in Presto, right? So the execution system is very powerful, and it's something that people have been wanting in USD since day one, right? Like they've been asking, like, how can we do rigs in USD that are more complicated than what's supported by USD Scale, right? And things like that. And
I know I'd love that because I'm working on an animated show right now, and don't get me wrong, I love USD Composer and I love the connectivity, and I still love using specialist tools like a Substance for texturing, of course, Substance Painter, I should say, Unreal Engine for some of my scene layouts and camera movements, and Blender or Maya for animation. But mocap comes into Unreal Engine, so recording that mocap and then bringing it into Composer for rendering, but also using Composer's physics engine because I just find it super easy. The soft body physics, the rigid body physics. But it's a funny thing because if you give a little bit to the community, they want a whole lot more. You know, and I don't want to sound ungrateful. I'm really not. I love it, but it's whet my appetite for more. So it's great to hear. That's something we can look forward to in the coming months or years?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the timeline is. Love to work with Pixar more closely on that, but they've been giving updates on it at their Birds of a Feather sessions at SIGGRAPH each year or so, and there's a really good book, I think it's called Multi-Threading for Visual Effects, and there's a chapter in there about the Presto execution system.
Multi-threading for visual effects.
Yeah, and I think there's also a website, multithreadingvfx.org, that has the course notes from SIGGRAPH in which this was described in terms of the Presto execution system, how it's multi-threaded.
That sounds like a great resource.
Things like that. But yeah, we're like it's somewhere in the future timeline for USD. In the meantime, though, one thing that did land in the most recent version of USD 24.03 are the sort of the lower level math for animation splines, right? So animation splines, of course, is something that's supported in Presto, and it's being ported into USD. Right now, what's in the USD libraries is just the lower level splines themselves. It hasn't been integrated into USD itself, and it's running unit tests to ensure that it's doing the same thing as AnimX and Maya. So you'll be able to match your animations in Maya with USD. It's similarly in Omniverse, right? There are animation examples available, and the animation data that writes out is also trying to stay as close to AnimX as possible. So we're going to see probably at some point in the timeline with AOUSD as well. How do we standardize animation in USD? It'll start with animation splines, but then we'll see see if we should spin up a working group for execution, and maybe that's where OpenExec kind of gets hashed out more. From there, I know the game developer community really wants that. I think for some of the capabilities on Omniverse, like Action Graph, right, that could be harmonized with what OpenExec is doing. And these are game behaviors, but these are also really important for industrial as well, for kind of like the training scenarios for autonomous vehicles and for robotics, right? You want to populate those scenarios with believable characters, humans, right? So that you can train these vehicles and robots to respond to being around humans walking around, making sure that they don't injure them, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think that's another case in which media and entertainment and industry are going to be solving the same problems together.
There's two things I want to pick up on. Firstly, you spent several years at Pixar working on this stuff, USD, and in a environment where it's about storytelling, and it's about feature films and production of that type, media and entertainment. When you came on board at NVIDIA, what was it like continuing to develop that kind of stuff with other sectors, so beyond media and entertainment, and what are some of your learnings in this space?
Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about how, for me, a pipeline is a pipeline, right? And so, having worked with film pipelines for so long, you get a sense for how data travels. And actually, I mentioned this in my talk yesterday too, where almost every software developer I talk to, when they kind of get it with USD, they realize, I've been doing this for over half my career anyway. This is just sort of a unified way for me to think about how I move data from application to application and from format to format, and so on and so forth. So, the storytelling aspects, actually, that it helps a lot for how I explain USD to these other more industrial personas, right? Where their pipelines aren't quite as fluid as it is in film, right? Because in film you always kind of have that end product in sight and in context, right? With industrial, there's a lot of stages to go into before it gets to a physical object, right? And that's what's so exciting about sort of industrial digitalization and XR and things like that, where you could do all these things in the virtual world before you produce a physical facility or physical product and things like that.
You're essentially prototyping to a very high fidelity and going through meaningful iterative cycles, which we know in the creative process, whatever the field, you're problem solving and going through creative cycles. The number of cycles don't come down, but the speed at which you can do it with real-time feedback in game engines and Omniverse, and the collaboration in real time that USD allows, it's really exciting because as a creative, I want to get through more ideas. I want to explore as much as I can, and then know that I'm making the best decision possible. With the Alliance for OpenUSD, you mentioned AOUSD earlier, and in your talk, that's a really exciting example of collaboration at a macro level, right? You've got organizations like Adobe and NVIDIA, Autodesk, and countless others joining. What are some of the recent announcements of AOUSD that have got you excited? Some of the partnerships or some of the people you're looking forward to working with in the group?
Yeah. this isn't out of AOUSD, but in Jensen's keynote, he showed Omniverse working on Vision Pro, right? And Apple's one of the founding members of the Alliance for OpenUSD as well. And that's really exciting to me, to see NVIDIA and Apple working together.
Well, Apple have had USD support in Reality Kit and their iPads,
right.
For ages, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a long time coming, and it's a natural fit for Vision Pro.
Yeah.
So, and NVIDIA streaming RTX rendered scenes from the cloud is a bit of a game changer for XR, because we're so used to now thinking about the limits of the compute on device. Have you played around much with the streaming, and what's the latency like, and what's your opinion as someone who would be using this in a production environment?
Yeah, so we did a prototype last SIGGRAPH called Run USD, right, in which you can actually submit USDZ to the cloud and get a streaming RTX viewport back, and it's really cool. And I was amazed at the performance you would get from that, and it totally makes sense. I mean, NVIDIA has invested for so long in GeForce Now, and in getting those high quality renders for gaming experiences to the end user, such that they can have, even on low end devices, have this like amazing gaming experience. And it totally makes sense that same technology can be used for other use cases. Like I've seen like just how much performance they've squeezed like at every step of the way from how those pixels get to the end device, and it's a beautiful fit for something like Vision Pro.
That's cool. So when the community wants to get more involved with USD, we're aware of the resources that Pixar have put out. We're aware of the Alliance for OpenUSD and their site full of resources. Obviously, this is open source, so GitHub has tons of resources, and the Alliance is really standardizing in certain versions, so at least there is a standard that everyone can work to. It doesn't limit the offshoots in the USD community. What are some of your favorite go-to resources to recommend to people, either new to it or wanting to develop their knowledge a bit further and hands-on? What would you recommend to fellow creators, fellow developers, fellow production professionals?
Yeah, I hate to promote myself, but I'll treat it as not promoting myself. I would say I'm promoting the really good work that the NVIDIA team has done on the YouTube series that I talk through sort of the major features of USD. I really recommend that as a starting point.
I'm glad you said that, because some of my videos are part of that series too.
So start there. On docs.omniverse.nvidia.com, there's a USD portal in there that has a link to those videos. There's also some sort of they're more white paper kind of narrative style about walking through some of the USD concepts. There are some hands-on exercises there as well. Obviously, I'd recommend downloading USD View and playing with it as well. I'm hoping to get more sort of web experiences on. Oh, actually, no, that's right. No, we do have a DLI course on NVIDIA that has where you can play around with USD and Jupyter notebooks. So it's a zero install experience where you can play around with Python and get a little bit more hands-on in there as well. Yeah, those are good places to start.
I would also plug your talk from GTC this week. Hopefully that's up on YouTube, because it was full of fantastic information, but one that I found really helpful from a practical level, given that I've been using OpenUSD for a while now for my show, I just kind of dove in, and I didn't really pay attention to best practices because I was just figuring stuff out. But you were really helpful in showing us how to manage a scene, because the more assets you get in there, you want to manage it in a specific way, from prims to nested prims and so on, the hierarchy of data. Because not only does that help me as a person and in a team find what they're looking for and work with other people's scenes, it also helps the generative AI assistant that is being integrated into OpenUSD as it is implemented in Omniverse. So tell us a little bit about how human input and generative AI input can combine into a really smart pipeline, OpenUSD pipeline.
Yeah, I was essentially enlisting everyone in that room to sort of learn these best practices so that we could see these AIs to learn about them. And then eventually what I want is, let's say you were starting over again from when you're learning USD. And I'm really glad that lowered the bar for you, but we want the bar to be something any human can issue a prompt via text or other ways and get the USD that they want. Now again, like I think that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy to make stuff because I think as an artist yourself, even when things are easy, it's all about giving you more iterations, right?
And control.
Yeah,
you want to be able to direct
right?
this stuff and get what you want, not just settle
That's right.
for whatever that's.
So I want to be really clear about this too, like because I think that right now generative AI does have implications for creative professions, right? And I want to use it in a way that gives creators more iterations. And to be able to focus on the things they want to focus on. And to me, like asset structuring is one of those things that, like for me, I can kind of nerd out about. But as a creator, that's not really where I want to spend my time, right? And so that's why I kind of want to see these AIs now to learn about asset structuring. Yeah, so folks like you can focus on like, oh, I'm not quite happy with that pose yet for this acting moment in this shot, right? And even if you're using text to really shape that pose accordingly, right? I think I imagine you're still going to spend a lot of time crafting it. Well, I can't imagine you're going to like issue a prompt that says, "Oh, make him look sad," and I can't imagine like if you're making like a cinematic experience that that's sad enough. But you're gonna
want nuance.
You
want nuance, and you want a specific character.
You're gonna iterate on it accordingly, right?
How you might look when you're sad is going to be different to the way I look.
That's right.
Because we're completely different people and different circumstances.
Yeah.
And that level of nuance and control is really a human being's job. That's how we come up with scenes and moments that other people can connect emotionally with.
Yeah.
And that's the most fun thing for creators.
I think so.
And anything that supports that and allows you to do more of that can only be a positive thing in the workflow. So it's so great to hear that that's your focus as someone who's leading the product space and for Omniverse and USD. That's really exciting to hear and encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Aaron.
No, thank you.
It's been great speaking to you about this.
Yeah, and it's great to finally meet you in person.
Likewise. So I found that hugely insightful. I hope you did too. And we're here at GTC all week. So if you like this stuff, subscribe to Scan AI and check out all the stuff we're doing here at GTC 24.